welcome to Lifehacks from the Baobab with Mayase and Clayton, where we take you on a journey of Proverbs, folktales,
Folktales.
and ancient wisdom, and really think about it in the terms of modern life. So, yeah, this is our baby, and we're hoping to take you on this journey with us. And really, what we're aiming for is to share as much wisdom as we can, ancient wisdom. We're going to start with African proverbs because that is our background, and then ultimately just spread all these different wisdoms from across the globe and help you think about, how it can help you thrive. So who are we? Let's do some introductions of ourselves and explain why we're bringing this to life. Um, I'll go first. I will say Moiseni. So that is welcome in my mother tongue, which is Bemba. So my background is I'm African Australian of Zambian background. I'm a human-centered technologist. Don't ask me what that means. Basically, I work in tech, but I'm a really big believer in collective wisdom. I'm also an author. So that to me, I see storytelling as a tool that really helps us kind of think about our own transformations and the transformations of us as a human race or as a group. So I'm really excited about this podcast because for me, it's a place where we're going to explore proverbs, which is, what I'm really keen about in terms of roots, but also it's a place for life lessons. And we're going to be doing a little bit of like comparing, does that wisdom from ancient, is it actually relevant today? Does it make sense? Does it stand the test of time? So yeah, really excited to get everybody to explore this world with us. And ultimately, we call it life hacks because we want to have everyone come on the journey of how these proverbs can support your day-to-day life. So yeah, that's about me. Clayton, who are you?
Cool. Oh, thanks, Mayase. And my name's Clayton Yakana, and yeah, it's great to do this collaboration on the uh, life hacks from the Baobab tree, right? That's what we call it. Yeah. So, uh, yeah, I'm also a technologist, originally from Uganda, now living in Australia, and I love. While I'm a technologist, I also just love, all things to do with wisdom, philosophy, uh, things to do with life generally. Yeah. So I'm always curious about that life, cultures, uh, and how everything comes together, really. So I'm just really deeply curious about that. And so with Mayasa, we've spoken a few times, and we've gone through some of the content for some of our work. And as we were doing that, the idea for this was born, and so here we are. So we'll be kind of like going on this new journey where we explore these proverbs and like really uh, pull out that wisdom and pull it out in the current context of where we are in time, right? Like
Mm,
in the modern day, does it still work? If it is real wisdom, it should still work and it should still be applicable. But how does it apply with all the current challenges? Because the time at which it was generated, probably the conditions were different with what we're dealing with now. And so yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of it, and I'm really looking forward to where it's gonna go. Uh, yeah.
yeah. I love it. And I think the format is going to be we're going to have a proverb every week. We're going to dissect what that proverb means to us and in the general context of its meaning, but also in day to day life. But ultimately, because we want you to come on the journey with us, we are going to be asking this community that we're bringing together, this community to actually share your proverbs. And then, yeah, we get to hear what your favorite proverbs are, and we get to dissect them and
Yeah.
share them. So I think the part of community also excites me, because
Mm.
again, we're kind of like really bringing knowledge together from different parts and different minds. So that's exciting. So before we get into our first proverb, which is very closely related to our, our podcast name, um, so we can talk about why did we choose the baobab tree? Do you remember why we chose the baobab tree?
Not specifically, but I think it has to do uh, with, how big it is. I think it was related to that documentary from what's her name, Zainab Badawi, where these people actually lived in a baobab tree, and there was this tribe that lives in a baobab tree, and that's how they do life. I think that was part of the inspiration, but it's not just that though.
Yeah.
You remember
So
anything more than that?
yeah, let's get into the proverb because I feel like the proverb will also help kind of like dissect or define why the baobab tree. I also think
Yeah,
from an African context, you're either seeing an acacia tree or a baobab tree when you're seeing the African savanna.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
because we're starting with, wisdom that's from the African context. It kind of like, fits in that
yeah.
space as well. Yeah. All right, so let's get to this week's proverb. This week's proverb is from the Akan people of West Africa. The Akan are a big group of people who are across Ghana, Togo, and Cote d'Ivoire. So we don't actually have the actual Akan proverb because both of us are not from West Africa. So I think even if we had it, we couldn't actually uh, say what it is. But the English version or the version that we're going to use of this proverb is wisdom is like a baobab tree. No one individual can embrace it. Wisdom is like a baobab tree. No one individual can embrace it. So it's open. Clayton, what are your first feels about this? What are the Akan trying to tell us here?
Yeah, like from I feel like what they're trying to tease out is uh if you've seen a baobab tree, it has a huge trunk, right? Like if you try to embrace it, yeah, you're not going to be able to actually put your arms around it. Like if it's a fully grown one, maybe
Mm,
you could put your arms around a baby one, but once it's fully grown and it manifests itself as a full grown tree, yeah, you can't put your hands around it. And remembering that clip from that that documentary from Zainab Badawi, uh, the tree was so huge. She went in, and there was this group of tribal hunters. Um, they needed to take shelter from the rain, and so it
mm,
was like about 20 people walked into a trunk of a tree, and they were all in there sheltered, and they were all fine. It was so huge.
it's that big that
Yeah,
it can shelter people. You can make it your home. And you know
yeah.
what I'm picturing there of like you carve into the trunk, but the tree is still standing. And this is also like to the manifestation of how deep its roots are and how, just the power and the energy that it has of like you can carve, make a home for yourself. And the tree is like, yeah, I'm still here, still strong, still going. Yeah. I
Yeah,
like
no,
that example of how, it's also useful as shelter.
yeah, yeah, totally. It's like, now thinking about it, it's like, yeah, the wisdom you can't grab all of it, but you can enter into it, and it will sort of like protect you, and you can live in it, and it will protect you from things that you probably couldn't withstand on your own. So it's such a great metaphor.
Yeah, yeah. I thought about one of just like the for me it has this thing about the power of community, because it says no one individual. But if there's a whole bunch of us and we were holding hands and we were doing that, then maybe like a whole community can embrace the tree. So you can't do it yourself. So in that kind of like, for me, following that train of thought, that the proverb is really digging into like, we are here for, I don't know. I don't even want to say, I'm like, we're here for each other, kumbaya. But I think like it's that collectiveness. We are here as a collective. You as an individual are part of the collective. So if we all hold hands, we'll be able to embrace it, which to me is also like a definition of this concept of wisdom, right? Wisdom is about the collective knowledge that is passed on. And without the passing on, it doesn't exist. And so it
Mm.
needs you to be part of community, not as an individual, because if I have wisdom as an individual, I die with that wisdom. Nobody else gets to kind of share in its power. So that's what I was getting, that thing of like, as part of the collective, you also have a responsibility to take the wisdom to the next generation or the next person, because knowledge and wisdom is a collective thing. You can be as
Mm.
wise as you can, right? Like you can even have intelligence, your Einstein. If Einstein never shared E is equals to MC squared, it has no meaning. It's just
Yeah.
it in his head. And for me, that is true wisdom. It's really just it can come from a person, but it has to be shared outside of
Yeah.
your individualness.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think it's if it's not uh let's say applied, then I guess like if it's not applied, is it really wisdom? Does it actually unlock the value? And I guess the whole you'd say scientific tradition is deeply rooted in that, whereby you encourage, go off and investigate, and once you find something, then now publish it so that people can test it, and not just test it, but they can actually reuse it. And if you remember, like during COVID times, we saw a lot of that. It's like, there's a group of scientists over here who've come up with this approach, and you guys can try it out and sense check it. And so you had all this global collaboration to fight off this, epidemic. And indeed, like it yielded results faster ever in history than has ever been achieved. Even if the solutions were not as rigorous and as perfect as we've had before, but they were good enough to solve the problem that had arisen, and now the world is back to normal.
Yeah, yeah. And I think about like, for me, even like a current example of this is this podcast. And how we came to this podcast is, my book and the proverbs that I was sharing in my book, and you have lived quality podcast, and you have that community growing, and I came on your podcast, and then we're like, ooh, maybe we can actually do this thing together of like expanding this. And I was like, yes, I've thought about it, but I haven't had the time and the capacity and all of this. But also in that concept of like the individual working in collaboration with the other individual, in this case, you and me,
Mm.
we bring different things to this
Yeah.
collaboration. Like we bring different things to this podcast. We kind of like from a technology background, we also kind of come from different spaces. I'm coming from business analysis, quality analysis, and then we've evolved into like project management
Yeah.
sphere. But just even in general, how we tackle things is differently. Like I came in, I'm like, listen, Clayton, we need to have gates here. Gate one, gate two. We need to be clear about A, B, C, D. And Clayton was like, what we need to do is be flowy about life and let these ideas stew a little bit and all of this. And then you had all these vast ideas, which we are going to implement at some point. And then I'm like, okay, Clayton, let's start with A. So
Yeah.
even if that is like, the good part is like we bring our different synergies to this. And
Mhm.
then from those different synergies, we get to build what this wisdom looks like, even for us to
Yeah.
build this podcast. And that's an important aspect of like anything that you're going to do in life. I believe in the power of two. I believe in the power of like let other people hear it, get the
Yeah.
feedback, and move. Don't be siloed or insular type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it they used to say? Move fast and break things. Yeah, break them and then put them back together and make them more beautiful than they were before you broke them. But I love it, and I think it's like that shows the true power in the wisdom, especially like when it's so interesting because we both look at it from different perspectives
Mm.
and we're seeing it in different ways, but when it comes together, it makes sense together.
Yeah.
Like, it's like we were seeing different pieces of it. And yeah, it reminds me of what is it, is it the Greeks, I think? Must be the Greeks or the Romans, probably the Greeks. They had the idea of their concept of what a truth
Mm.
uh, is more like something that you can't really grasp on your own. It's more like something that's ever evolving that you have to keep discovering, and you're only going to discover bits and bits of it. I think if I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right, but the concept was aletheia. So it's
Mhm.
like that's how that is what they meant when they spoke of truth, and like similarly with wisdom, it's not like you're going to like really like you're gonna keep picking wisdom tokens and applying them as you go, and but they'll expire and you need to keep picking more and more. And that's what I think, like having a place like this where we, you know, keep that exploration happening, keep that exploration alive. I think it's very vital in this day and age, especially uh, given that our modern generations sort of feel like the ancient stuff is to be done with, like, that's stuff of the past. We live in the AI age. What are you talking about? I'll just GPT everything. Yeah. But actually, this stuff was there before or even the GPTs were imagined, and it sort of like predicted it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And either way, even if we look at our social networks, whether you're on Instagram and you're seeing this on YouTube, these are social networks that on their own, nothing happens. They actually
Mm,
work on the power of all the people who are on the social network. Once you have a good number of people on the social network, then boom, the social networks kind of like expand and explode. Again, if you think about it, what are people sharing on social networks? All of these, whether they're food influencers, health influencers, be careful of every influencer type of thing. They're really using the power of the community and not their individual power. We can look at them in the essence of like individuals, but those individuals without the collection of their followers, without that community, they're
yeah.
nothing.
They're nothing. Yeah. They're nothing. They can't
Yeah.
stand on their own. Yeah, you
Yeah.
do definitely need the community uh, to like embody such a thing as a wisdom. And the other thing, in fact, is like when the a piece of wisdom is so strong, it sort of like generates its own spirit in a
Mm,
way, and it makes it has its own life form in a way, and then now. uh, it's like the people who practice it, its body, and they're giving it a body to live in as they practice it, and it's the spirit that they're trying to manifest. I don't
Yeah,
know what you think about that.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting. That's interesting because I think um if you're in that space of like the way I have translated what you're talking about, for me is like you're in that space of if something needs to evolve and grow, people have to embody it
Mm.
and then
Yeah,
gains its own momentum, gains its own truth from that belief and from that
yeah,
use as well. So you're really like there's a lot of power in that, right?
yeah.
Because the power is in that evolution and that energy that you're bringing, that spirit, I guess. That energy is like really just forming from the use of it and the evolution of that use of it. And without it,
Mm.
then it doesn't it doesn't
Yeah, no, without it, it dies.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I think that's also for me that's like a key thing. Like the power of us as people to live thriving lives really depends on the energy that we put into things. And right now we're
Mm.
talking about the collective knowledge, the collective wisdom, and the energy that is then used to expand our daily lives or used to expand knowledge to the about roots and culture to the next generation. Either
Mm.
way, the key to that part is somebody's got to start it and then it needs to grow in community.
Yeah,
um yeah, and so we need to empower the individuals that are so starting this movement, starting this knowledge and that type of thing, but we also have the power within us to be the ones who are generating that wisdom.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And you speak of that generation, like uh, it reminds me because like our ancestors or like the people who came up with, who codified these proverbs and all this wisdom, uh, they they didn't just do it for themselves. They knew there were, generations to come who they were doing this for. It's like they were doing it for people who they hadn't met yet.
Mm,
And they're like, look, I probably won't be here, but look, I'm just gonna wrap this up and send it to the future. It's like, or, draw it on a rock face or, I'll tell it to someone so that it's not just with me, like to to put it in what is it in John Vervaeke's terms, it's like they were trying to build a distributed cognition to
mhm.
kind of like spread out their brain across multiple other brains such that they can get that multiplier effect. Because when it's like when you start a trend, when you start a lifestyle, then that surpasses, it's beyond you. It's way bigger than just you, and it takes its own life form. And so, yeah, I mean, that's why we still talk about, like people like, Michael Jackson, like, he's been here, he's done his time, and to this age, like we still remember that name because like he was such a phenomenon with what he did, and it surpassed him and his his lifespan. So yeah, I guess like wisdom has to do that.
Yeah. I wonder as well whether it's also a fundamental human, I'll call it a fundamental human need or a fundamental human capability to
Mm.
say like you were saying like let's draw these hunting things on sticks and walls, and so the next generation can see it, they can know how to fish, they can know how to hunt, they can like fundamentally we as humans want to share the wisdom.
Yeah.
We as humans want to take the next generation to know what has happened in the past so they can learn from it. And for me, I feel like some of that is getting lost
Mm.
because of like the fast pace of our modern lives. And also, our focus as well is on maybe get rich quick schemes, hustle for your life, and those types of things are taking away from the essence of like what comes next in our knowledge spaces as humans, of how we can evolve our knowledge. We're more concentrating on, I would say, material things, but there might be other things. But we're concentrating on a slither of our humanity instead of like
Mm.
the wider knowledge that makes us wholesome. So we
Yeah.
lose a lot of that other knowledge that will make us like wholesome human beings.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that. Like we definitely happen to be at a point in time where it's like there's a lot of competing things for our attention, and
Mm,
especially the understanding of health and well-being uh has evolved so many times that we're at a point whereby we get confused about it. Like what we think it is or what we think it should be is getting conflated with what it should be. And and we're suffering for that in many ways because, like I like to say, we miss the point. Like we end up missing the point of what it should be. Because one big conflation we make is and this is a common thing, like you see it on the socials and everywhere. We really like to think that being happy is what wellness and health is all about, right? But it's actually, I think it's a conflation because like happiness is not the same thing as joy. And
mm,
the things that give you joy are sort of going to be cultivated in a different way from the things that make you feel laughter and temporary excitement, which is what most people mean by happiness. Like, I just want to be happy. I want something to make me laugh, and you
and it's a
know
constant, right? There's
yeah.
happy all the time, uh neglecting all the other different emotions that we
Yeah.
have, and
Yeah.
allowing them to also be what they need to be in certain situations. But
Mm.
we're just um aiming for happiness every day, every hour, every second, every day. And that
It's
is
like
also
tracking one in tracking that one indicator, right? It's like if I can only find, something, it's like, okay, maybe if we just serve you lots of comics and jokes every day, your life should be great. You should have a healthy life. And because you're laughing all the time, right? But actually, no,
no.
because those things don't fill all the
They
cups, right?
don't
You
laugh,
need,
they're laughing, you then realize they're like, "Ah, these people are laughing too much. Why don't I laugh as much as they laugh? They must be having a
yeah,
good life. I don't have to be like boo, cry. Oh, I need to watch some
yeah,
more happy people."
yeah. Oh, good. But yeah, you have to actually go through, those growth challenges, the things that, explore all the range of emotions and walk through each one of them, and then it's like figuring out how to live a balanced life
Mm.
that could start to give you some joy. But somebody says that to you when you're seeking some happiness, you're like, look at this person. What are they trying to say? Leave me alone.
Exactly, exactly. All right, let's give some key takeaways from this proverb for everybody else to kind of like ponder on. And, we've given a glimpse of what we want for this community, what the podcast is going to look like. Yeah, what do you want people to kind of like our first proverb get away with, that, next week they can keep it in the back of their minds?
Well, one thing that I would love for people to take away from this is, to like really lean into themselves and not be afraid to, let's say, embrace their own wisdom, right? Like, i-
Mm,
we all have sayings, we all have ways we interpret the things that go around us, and the way we characterize them and the way we label them in our own way of speaking. Uh, I would encourage people to do more of that. Like, find your own language of of your own being, right? Like, don't be afraid to call things the way you feel they should be called according to you, and uh, share that, describe that with the people you live with and you interact with. I think it that way helps us to better understand the world around us, and the things that are going on that we need to sort of like speak to, sort of like, so we're more aligned. um but that said, uh also look into the past wisdoms, right? Like, look
mm,
into those proverbs. They have some rich stuff to offer us. Yeah.
yeah. I want what I'm thinking about right now as a key takeaway for me is like that kind of like personal and collective transformation.
Mm.
Uh, and people really thinking about, knowledge and wisdom as a space for self growth, but
Mm.
also growth as a collective. And we all have a responsibility for shaping how that looks like. So, don't be afraid to create. And also when you're creating, involve other people as well, because that's the only way you're going to get the energy to be able to embrace that
Oh,
baobab
the
tree
tree.
of yours.
Yeah.
That proverb trio of yours. And I think before we close and, give our listeners something to think about in the next week, I also want to acknowledge, for you and I, Clayton, in the Australian context, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which our podcast is recorded and pay my and our collective respects to elders past and present, and really also just acknowledge that there is a lot of Indigenous Australian wisdom that is, really fundamental to how this land was built and this land is going to grow and evolve. And yeah, at some point in our journey of this podcast, I would really love for us to indulge in that, traditional, indigenous, Australian indigenous traditional knowledge, and, you know, be able to kind of see how it also impacts us and how we can use it in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah, definitely. That's wow. You wrapped it up so beautifully.
All right, let's give some people some homework. Yeah, I think, what's your favorite proverb that you use? We're really keen to, like we said, use the community, share your proverbs with us, and we can delve into them in the coming weeks.
Thank you for being a part of our community. Share your thoughts and proverbs using life. It's a hashtag. Life hacks from the Baobab. Connect with us on Instagram at the Baobab Life Hacks. Until next time, remember, ancient wisdom is timeless.